Hello, you're listening to Otaku Spirit Anime Cast. My name is Andrew, and I'm joined here with Chris.
Yo.
Today's episode is our Fall 2024 Anime Season Reviews, Part 2 of 3. I don't know what was going through my head last week when I said that we might just do it in 2. We have way too many to do just in 2. I mean, unless we were to sit here for the next, 4 hours finishing it up, which I don't think we could do, because 1, Chris wants to sleep eventually.
Yes.
And 2, I like to sleep. I don't want to stay up all night editing. And 3, I got a lot of other stuff to do. So we're doing 3-parters. But yeah, this week I assume we're going to do Let This Grieving Soul Retire, Puniru is a Kawaii Slime, The Most Notorious Talker, 365 Days to the Wedding, Do-Over Damsel, Negative, I almost said the other title and I really don't like the other title, Negative Positive Angler, As a Reincarnated Aristocrat Season 2, Mecha Ude, the story... That's Yuki. The stories of girls who couldn't become magicians, TsumaSho, Yuki, can I finish the intro? You're looking at me like, what? And TsumaSho and You Are Miss Servant. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, as usual, we're at otakuspirit.com. It's where all of our links are, social media links, ways to get a hold of us, ways to support us, and all that good jazz. Chris, how's it going?
It's going all right.
Did you watch Beheneko this week?
Probably not.
You didn't know it was there. Otherwise, you probably would have.
I seen a couple
The
things
season
pop
has started,
up, but,
Chris. Are you ready for the new season? Are you ready for winter? It was an early release, and thankfully High Dive got it completely uncensored. So both they got the early release and they got it uncensored. So I'm like, awesome. So far, pretty solid.
I try to at least finish the season before I start the next one.
I'm trying to be a responsible anime watcher, Andrew. Shut up. I want to finish the current season before we get into that. I fully understand. I only had 2 other shows left for fall, technically, but I decided at this point I'm going to drop them. That's Sword Art Online, Gungale, and Spirit Chronicles. I'm just like, I have no desire to go back and finish them, and I'm just like, I'll just drop it. Let's get all the end of the year stuff done, get into the next season. Let's go. I'm ready to leave behind 2024. I've consumed enough stuff and I'm sick of everything. So we're just going. Plus you told me not to do Over Damsel, which we'll get into in a bit. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Anyways, let's get into it. Let This Grieving Soul Retire is our first one, and I don't even have it on the screen, so I don't have anything to go based off of. Grieving Soul. Nageki no Bore wa Intai Shitai. This one is streaming on Crunchyroll for 13 episodes. 0G worked on it. Source is a light novel, action, adventure, fantasy. And this one follows Cry. And when he was very young, and he was hanging out with his friends, they all wanted to become treasure hunters, which are basically like adventurers. They go into dungeons and find treasure and loot and whatnot. And his friends are all massively OP, super strong. And he's always kind of felt like he's holding them back because he's not strong. And at some point he goes to quit because he's kind of putting them in danger because he keeps getting the bad spots. And while he's trying to quit, they're like, hey, you become the leader of our clan. We're going to start up a clan, which is called the Grieving Souls. And he ends up getting assigned as a leader. And so now he's cut forward. He's literally leading the biggest clan out there. And so everybody wants to join the clan with their own guilds. And everybody looks up to him like he's some crazy overpowered person, just like the rest of their team. And he's not. Now, he does have a quirk about himself, is that he's a artifact geek. He just loves artifacts, and he likes collecting them. He has a massive vault of them. And there is an aspect that, yes, whenever he gets into a situation, he'll use artifacts to save his butt, and that typically makes people believe that he's strong, but he's not. So it's just him kind of winging it. Everything is bothersome to him. He wants to, like the title believes you to bleed. He wants to retire. He wants to get out of the whole situation. He doesn't like how everybody believes that he's the greatest ever, but he's just kind of faking it till he gets to, not have to have a job.
Until they let him retire.
I was going to say fake it till you break it, but he just wants to break. He wants a break. Fake it till you get a break. There you go. That's the way to put it. He's joined with Tino, which is an apprentice to one of his former party members, Liz, and she's super OP, fighter, and then that's pretty much was the deal for a little bit.
Then say
Liz
what you really want to say about Tino.
Thighs. He's joined early on by Thighs, and Thighs is obsessed with him, and also is put through extremely brutal training by his former party member Liz. Liz shows up.
Pinkie Pie.
I'm sorry, not Liz.
Pinkie Pie.
She's Kuro Ilya from Fate Collide Liner. She shows up and she's like crazy sadistic yandere-esque. And then later on, we get to meet Citri, which is like their alchemist / scientist girl. Roxy. Roxy shows up, and she gets him into massive amounts of debt so that he'll marry her. I don't think we ever had I think that Lucia showed up, his sister. But I don't think they showed the tank guy on Sim like way later, like at the very end of the episode, along with Luke and them. But I don't think Luke ever came there either. He was their warrior dude that was pretty much their leader. He seemed like their leader. Anyways, that's the gist. At some point, he loses a slime that was given to him by Citri. He tries to find this nearby dungeon and starts getting, like, for some reason, more powerful over time. So they're trying to figure out what's going on with that. And it gets into some crazy, like, cult thing, which I completely about fell asleep over. And then, it gets into the whole thing with him trying to get more.
And it was actually Citri the entire time.
Yeah. She's working her magic. So what's your overall review of Let This Grieving Soul Retire? I want to puke. He always wants to puke. Oh, I'm gonna puke. Oh, McDuck's eye. I want to puke.
I liked it and I hated it at the same time. I don't know what it is about it that wasn't quite working for me, but what did work is I did like the because of circumstances aspect of it. I
think the writer is really clever at. It's not like it is not a Keikaku thing.
Yeah,
it is not him faking it to make it. It's just,
but everybody thinks he is.
Yeah, it's more the fact that something really silly happens, and then they assume based on what he said it was according to his plan. And I do that stuff can get really stupid. With a lot of other writers, but this one I feel like they were very clever with it. The one that I love really a lot is like he tells the receptionist something about how like this guy really likes boobs, and so what she does is go and tells him what Cry said, and the guy's like, "What? Did I hear that right? Say it louder." And so she screams in the middle of the guild hall. This guy he's a level 7 big boob lover or something like that, and it completely ruins his reputation. And it's like, oh, that was all according to Cry's plan, like thing. Everybody assumes if something happens, well, that's because he planned it all. And like, I mean, like the whole auction thing later on was that whole situation too. It's all him. And I have to admit that typically doesn't work for me. With this writer, they did it really well. So,
and that's probably the thing that kept me pushing through the show. I just enjoyed, and that's, I think, kind of what I was kind of putting it in the same category as I Am Atomic show.
Eminence
in the Shadow. I keep seeing kind of a similarity in that. It's not one for one, but it kind of in a similar vein to that. And that's one of the things that I was enjoying about it. Now, what I wasn't enjoying about it so much is the storyline just was not working for me. And I think that's probably its biggest weakness. The characters, loved the characters. But what they were going through didn't really work. It was, well, what does Cry think about this? Well, we won't figure it out until we do it because Cry's got everything up. It's all his plan. And
he's got to figure it out.
Yeah. And so it was like, I guess. So I'm in the middle on it. I did kind of like it. I did push through it because it was an overall an enjoyable show.
I think overall, like the big pushing force for me was that I like the character. Well, I like Grieving Souls and Tino. Tino and Grieving Souls were just they're just absolute characters, and their dorkiness around Cry. It is a harem, like literally. And I thought that was not gonna be the case. Like when they were showing like the backstory and stuff like that, I would assume like, maybe Liz is into Luke or something like that. No, they all want to Cry. Like they all want to. Liz shows up.
I'm just waiting for the boys to show up, and then they're all yandere as well.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting too. I was like, at least Ansem, the tank guy, I'm like, he's totally gonna like Cry. Like he's totally gonna be. He's gonna show up and coming in the pictures that they have of him. Like he's just got that like charmness to him. Like he's gonna be that whole thing. But I just assume like yeah, they're all just thirsty for him. My problem really came from I digged Ruta and Gilbert was okay. Like the first party that went off with Tino to the dungeon, they were like all right. Like them with Tino, that whole situation was solid. I like that. I mean, Ruta's like, why did Cry choose me? Boobs. It's like, what? Excuse me? He chose me for this really dangerous, deadly thing, which we literally signed a waiver coming here for. Or no, we wrote our wills.
Our wills.
Because we were assuming we were going to die. And he chose me because he likes big boobs. It was just kind of dorky. But yeah, like, I agree with you is that the problem that I think I have with this series, even though I like the characters, I like their chemistry with Cry, I think Cry is a solid character because, again, like I was mentioning with my fears of this show initially was, I'm afraid it's going to turn into a really dumb way of doing the fake it till you break it thing. What ruined the show for me, and like I said before, was, and it sucks because I really like Citri's Seiyu. So again, it's Kohara, Roxy Seiyu, and I like her character. Like she's twisted. Like again, like the whole thing where literally he's like, "How do I get out of debt?" Well, you can either throw me in jail so that I can't do anything about it, or you can marry me. She's twisted in that regard. Like she literally wants to give him anything he wants because he wants him more in debt to her, so that he's forced to have to marry her. I'm like, this girl's literally forcing him into debt just for the sake of forcing marriage. Whereas like Liz is just climbing into his bed at night. Mm-hmm. Tino is just constantly trying to get a wedding or trying to figure out some way of constantly being at his side and feeling like a ring that he gave her is a wedding ring. They all have their way of trying to get to him. Hers was debt. But the problem with Citri was like that was the point where the story started getting into this cult and crap and the dungeon and them trying to figure out where this he said watch out for this slime. We're trying to figure out what's going on with this dungeon. It's really powerful, but he's got it figured out, right? And like I don't care. Like I don't care about this stuff. I don't care about this cult. And it's plainly obvious who this other person is. Why are we spending so much time on this stupid story and it's not interesting? Get back to like the whole beginning segment up till that was crazy shenanigans around Tino and Liz, and now we're just hanging out with a bunch of randos trying to figure out where the stupid slime is. It's like stop it, like move on. It was a slog to get through. Like it sucked because the beginning segments I was like, this is gonna be like one of my favorite shows of the season, and then from that point on it was like, never mind. It sort of got better towards the later part of it, because then we got back to again the whole auction and everything with the crazy the crazy nobleman's daughter that was trying to beat them. She was crazy. That whole stuff was solid, but God, it felt like a huge chunk of this show was just like a throwaway, like bad throwaway. So I'm kind of on the same boat as you. Is like everything about the show is solid. I just think that whenever they get into the overall story and try to push some sort of plot line that doesn't really technically involve the main character, the main groups, it loses me.
Well, for sure. The Grieving Souls is by far seems to be very entertaining. And that's if we get another season, I'm for sure that
yeah, I got a second season announcement, I think.
Yeah, did it? Good.
I'm pretty sure.
Because I'm going to probably end up following that one, and just because I want to see a lot of these other characters.
Yeah, the very end, they decided to tease, like I said, the tank and the
at least
guy.
3 more characters if I
sequel. It has been. I don't think they have a date for it yet, no. But it's at least announced, which is good. I think it deserves another season. I'll definitely be checking it out. Visually, I think for the most part, it was solid. I mean, it wasn't like crazy animation. They used a lot of action stills and whatnot, but whenever it wanted to get crazy with Liz or something like that, they did a good job.
Went nuts. I think they liked doing Liz.
Her fighting the Adventure Guild guy or the Explorer Association guy was great.
Her entire introduction was freaking amazing.
Yeah,
I love.
Besides the fact that she was putting Tino through crazy torture. Like, yeah, when she first shows up, like, why the hell could you not beat this thing? Why are you being weak? I trained you and you're this weak. Like, she's legit like, you should just die. And so Cry just jumps up in front of her like, oh, okay, that's enough. Are you trying to stop me, Cry? Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Okay. I always love when she like gets so like crazy, like when she was training Tino and then Cry comes in and says, yep, that's enough. Are you trying to stop me? Yeah. Okay. You're so lucky, Tino. I'm jealous. I'm jealous that he'd come in here to stop me from killing you. This was great. I thought she was a massive kick. So, kick, get it? The
Pinkie
mask
Pie
thing was weird though. The mask
She's a
thing was
Pinkie
weird.
Pie.
They never really got into that fully, but they were talking about how like originally they had like this sword that would take over you, possess you, and this something that would mess up their balance. And I kind of assumed that they all used that. They're artifacts that had like weird abilities, and they all use that stuff to kind of power level themselves or something like that. It gets in some interesting stuff with the artifacts and stuff. So that was all.
And that was just such a fleeting statement, and then they just kind of moved on. It was like, no, that's cool. Let's go into that.
Yeah, they have like they're trying to figure out how to like recharge all of his rings and artifacts that he used in the dungeon, and so they end up turning into something about.
He's so awesome with that.
Like,
no, this is how we do it.
Trick a bunch of
Keep
people.
doing it.
Yeah, you have to expend all of your mana. So she's basically tricky. I mean, it never confirmed if it was a lie. But
No, they kind of implied that was how the other one that hasn't joined yet got so strong because she had an insane mana pool.
Yeah, his sister.
Which she was probably using her like that.
I mean, yeah, it could technically be a thing of like it serves both purposes where they're getting all of his stuff recharged for free, essentially, except for all the potions that she's having to use, which, again, the debt. All the potions to refill their mana that Citri's wasting in order to get him in debt. I mean, that's the funny thing. Is like, if she said, Cry, okay, let's take it over here and pay some people to recharge them, he's going to, I don't have money to do it, so that's my problem. No, what she does instead is goes, okay, well, we'll trick these people, or we'll have these people refill them for us while we give them potions to refill their mana, and then not tell him about the fact that she's expending a bunch of these resources that she's going to charge him for. She's crafty. Citri's crafty. Anyways, yeah, that's visually though, like I said, it was solid looking. The detail in the thighs were very well crafted. Very well crafted. Needed more Tino though. More Tino. Let this grieving soul retire. What do we have next?
I think we needed more Liz.
Did need more Liz, yes. She got like 3 dates out of him, so she got plenty of good moments with him at least. She was happy. That was the important thing.
Yeah, I'm
Puniru.
torn between both of the sisters, though. Truth be told, I like them both for their own reason.
The sisters between Liz and Citri.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. They're both kind of crazy. I would probably just stick with Tino. There's a little bit of craziness in the other two. I mean, Tino's technically crazy in certain ways, but she's devoted and a lot more innocent. But yeah, they're all right. Puniru. Puniru is a Kawaii Slime is the next one. Puniru wa Kawaii Slimeu. Streamed on Crunchyroll for 12 episodes, done by Toho Animation Studio. Sources of manga, comedy, fantasy, romance, slice of life. This one, I don't think there's going to be really much that's going to be different from my first impressions. I think it pretty much kept pretty consistent to what I was feeling back there, but it essentially follows Kotaro, who is, when he was very young, he was watching a kids show where they were showing kids how to make slime, and so he gets all excited and starts putting stuff together. He ends up going to grab something, knocks over some, confetti and some a drawing that he made, and it falls onto the slime that he was making, and it turns into a living slime, and he calls it Puniru. And this slime ends up growing up with him until he eventually gets to the point where he's too old for cute things, even though he's obsessed with cute things. Like anytime that nobody's looking, he's just geeking out about cute stuff. But he doesn't like, Puniru being around anymore because, yeah, he's gotten older, she's gotten older. And again, he's trying not to be around cute things around in public. So he's trying to ditch Puniru. And Puniru is always kind of following around. He used to call her cute all the time, so she's constantly trying to get him to call her cute. But yeah, he goes to school. His school's full of a bunch of crazy nuts. And he's just trying to get the attention of the school idol, Mommy, and yeah, Kirara. And yeah, later on, some chick shows up that makes the merchandise that he's obsessed with that's cute. All this kind of stuff. So that's the basic gist of Puniru, just a guy in school with a slime girl, and just absolute shenanigans happens. But again, like I said in my first impression, again, it's pretty similar to I Am Now. What makes this show great is that it's kind of in the same vein as you would get from like a Saturday morning children's show, where it's just kind of goofy mostly slapstick, outrageous kind of humor, but it always has kind of this sort of Japanese anime twinge of adult comedy in there as well, where it often kind of pushes over that over that edge to something that's more raunchy. Like I was talking about, like the earlier jokes, this idea of like the guys in his class gushing over different idols and which one's the best, has the best figure and whatnot. Puniru comes in thinking that Kotaro likes idols, so she decides to turn herself into an idol. And the guys are like, "Wow, that's great!" And they're all obsessed with the fact that she got this big chest. And so she's like, "Oh, is this offend you?" Like, "No, that's great. Well, we want to test to make sure it's, you know, you're doing a proper job of being an idol." And so she goes, "Oh, so you want to touch them?" And she chops them off. And she's like, "There you go, try them out." And so they're holding her boob slimes in their hands. That stuff is like, again, like that pushing over like the edge to something that's a little bit more like questionable, not like raunchy, like ecchi, full on ecchi kind of stuff, but it's kind of borderline on that moment there. So, and it was always that kind of crazy, absurd humor that really had my attention early on. Like I loved it whenever, and I was getting maybe one an episode. Like overall, it was just kind of a charming, goofy little antics of, again, Kotaro being chased around by Puniru and her trying to get his attention, him not wanting her attention, and everybody around them responding. But then like one time an episode, I'd have like this, holy crap, it just did that moment. Like it would have a moment where it just catches me off guard. Like, holy crap, that was crazy hilarious. Like I said before, like the other great moment was finding out about Kirara and her obsession with cute little kids. She turns into insane, like instincts, mama instincts kick in like crazy. Yeah, it goes like nuts. Like grabs Puniru and shoves her into her chest and squishes her. That stuff was just absolutely nuts. I will admit that like I never really had any moments like that again after like the episode 4 or 5. Like I just it kind of just became okay after that point. So that's kind of the sad thing, is that I never really had those outrageous moments ever again beyond that point. But I mean, just for those few I got was plenty for me. And overall, like I said, it's just a goofy show. I think its biggest weakness overall is that once it introduces the characters, they fall into that unfortunate area where that's their joke.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, whenever Kirara shows up, what is their joke going to be? She's gonna do the mommy joke, you know. But I've got to be mama, grab this thing and hug it and scare the hell out of it kind of moment. Whenever Nampa, the Yusuke, the preppy, the pretty boy, whenever he shows up, what's his thing? He's like super into kids games. And so whenever he shows up, he's talking about wanting to play, you know, I don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Or cards or something like that. He's just like a kid at heart, even though he's supposed to be like this super dashing guy that is a playboy. He's actually just a kid. That's their jokes. So every time they show up, that's their jokes. So that's kind of the unfortunate thing that it does have. And yeah, technically something that I run into a lot with some of these more juvenile, goofy comedy types of series. So it didn't ruin it, but at the same time, that was sort of its difficulty. It did get into like this whole long thing with, again, the girl that was the daughter of the president of the company, and her whole thing with trying to make her little doll thing, and it turns into this android thing, and then replacing the android thing, and them all fighting over the android that was left behind, and that whole thing. But in the end, it was okay. Like it went from a show that was giving me some like insane laugh out loud moments once an episode to just being okay. It was a cute little show that I liked. So not a best comedy of all time contender or anything by far, but it was solid.
So it didn't reach Goo levels.
No. It had a feel of that early on for sure. Well, see, my whole thing with that was like, and it kind of sucks, was I was really hoping for this thing where it was nobody knew Puniru was an actual slime, kind of like Goo. Harai no Ichigo was an aspect of nobody knew that she was some weird, crazy alien thing that only he knew about. Everybody else thought that she was just this cute little girl that just showed up in the village. But no, everybody figured out that it was again, she chops off her boobs and they... And then later on, she strikes... She opens up a little shop and tries to sell body parts of her. You want to buy a Puniru finger? Anyways, that's Puniru is a kawaii slime. Solid, decent show. So, what next? The most notorious talker. It's your turn, Chris. Are you ready to be a talker?
Yes.
Chris is ready.
Especially
to be a
about
talker.
this one.
Oh, that was
I have
the wrong
lots
talker.
and lots to say.
Chris has a lot to talker about talker. The most notorious talker runs the world's greatest clan, or Saikyo no Shinshoku wo Jutsushi de aru ore wa Sekai Saikyo clan wo Shitagaru. I forgot how long this one ran. Probably 12 episodes, I'm assuming. Done by Felix Film and G.A. Crew. Source of the light novel. Action, adventure, comedy, fantasy, and psychological is the genres. But yeah, this one follows Noel. He was trained. He's in a world where people can become like, what was it called? Seekers. Yeah, and he got the classification of talker, which is basically a buffer, whereas the seekers are like just adventurers with powers, whatever.
Did you end up watching this?
I dropped it a little bit after they had the whole stupid thing with they went to the village and there was a little cute girl that liked him, and then kind of find out they were trying to drug him, and
yeah.
Then they all had derpy faces, and I said, turn off. Get the dirt. We're gonna have the whole like twirling mustache people every episode. Turn off. Anyways, yeah, he wanted to become just like his grandfather.
Yes.
And his grandfather died, and was training him before then. Knew that he was a talker, which is a buffing class, but still said that you could still become powerful. So he trains to become strong. Anyways, goes out, joins a group. At some point, they're collecting money in order to make a clan. He finally says, "Hey, we have enough money to make a clan. I want to become the best. We're never going to get the big jobs unless we make a clan." And then come to find out, his party leader, who was managing all the money, ran off with all the money. He chases him down, sells him off to some slave trader as revenge, takes all the money, starts a clan. This one assassin chick shows up. She apparently, her father or something hated his grandfather or something like that. Anyways, she joins his clan, and they start going out and doing stuff. So that's pretty much where I got. So, how did it turn out, Chris? How'd your... I'm the weakest class, but I'm actually OP. I buff people, and then I get a hot assassin tan chick. That was about the only reason I want to keep watching it. She's pretty hot.
Yeah, she is.
Alma was pretty hot. I got into her backstory stuff, which was shrug.
I actually liked this quite a bit. I was actually surprised. I figured this one would probably try too hard to be the edgelordish,
edge.
Yeah, I figured
so
that was going to happen.
It didn't beat.
So I figured Grieving Souls I would kind of piddle off, or I would really like, and this one I would piddle off. But in all actuality, it was quite the opposite. I really enjoyed this.
So you're saying this is better than Grieving Souls?
Chris, in different ways, yes.
Shots fired.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's gonna hate me, but I did actually.
Is it edgier than Failure Frame?
I don't think I watched that one, so
Probably
probably not.
Watch that one. It was the off-Retta show.
But
Paralyzed poison. Anyways.
But no, this one I actually quite enjoyed it. It didn't try too hard to. While it did do the Kikaku thing, it didn't feel like it was focusing on that. What's his face tended to Noel, he tended to kind of move things around in his favor. And so he would like at one point he was trying to break up this this party so that he could get the actually the leader of the party to join his group. And so he went through this entire process of forcing them to kind of take up a challenge against him, cause each one of them to feel like somebody was going to betray, and then at some point when one of them betrayed, they ended up, none of them could trust each other.
Planting seeds of doubt.
Seeds of doubt, yes. And this goes all into his character. He's just so absurdly ambitious that he will do what it takes to get to his goal of being the greatest. And nobody really kind of fights him with that. He just is that ambitious. And I really like a character who's just refreshingly just ambitious. And so it really just works out for me. I really did like it. I was a little bit turned off of the artwork at first, but it kind of grew on me.
Yeah, I wasn't too much a fan. I mean, based on what I watched of Noel, I just found him to be. He's not like I said before. Like when our first impressions, I don't blame him, but I don't like him. Like it is one of those. He's not likable, but I understand why he is the way he is. And again, that a lot of that is pretty much facilitated by the fact that, like I said before, every character that popped up on the screen were all mustache twirlers. Mm-hmm. Like everybody was just like derpy faces. Like that's like the first group. I'm like, oh, here we go. They're all going to be betraying him. Did Walter ever come back? The guy that ran off to his hometown. Did he ever come back in the show?
No.
Oh, so probably later.
I'm not going to say that he won't at some point.
Probably later in the light novel series.
It's possible. He's so freaking driven that, I mean, if he has his mind set that he's going to get Walter at some point, he will.
He'll destroy his hometown. He'll plant seeds of doubt in his hometown until it's destroyed, and then he'll get Walter to join him. I'm sorry, man. What happened to your town? Hey, you want to join my guild?
It's funny because he's not the OP type. He's just the super crafty. And I don't blame you for the whole I see all mustache twirler, because in all actuality he ends up going up against a mafioso, and it's like, no, it's not about the mustache twirlers, but dadgummit, it's going to happen at least one more time on you. It's funny because he's just I love, like I said,
it wasn't so much like the town, like I said, with the guy and his wife trying to poison him. That was like, okay, they were doing it for this other reason, and so there's a reason why they're doing it. Whatever, they made a really horrible. They chose the wrong person. But it was more like just that didn't bother me. It was just the response of the little kid, who you would assume, like with the kid, they would just be not understanding what the situation is. No, she immediately turns into like, oh, I hate you, even though the situation is warranted. And it gets in that whole realm of like, okay, I'm done. All right. The reaction of this kid just doesn't click for me. I would assume that she'd be either stuck in a state of confusion, not understanding why what just happened. No, she immediately just turncoats into this weird. Not that I think that she should have been like, Dad, how dare you do that to Noel? Because she was like super into him. No, it just turns into like she's like a part of it. Okay, this is cheesy. Moving on, moving on. I don't care.
Well, even some of the characters later, I mean, I think that you get more of a over, and that's why it's like that psychological tag on there. It's like, yeah, I guess I could kind of see it being that it's not dark enough to do that. But it is bordering on the edge of, okay, I can see that. It's constantly. He's negotiating situations into a way that they would benefit him, and that's why I say he's so damn ambitious. It's like but he doesn't care about getting his hands dirty to get his goal, and that I think is the thing that makes him so daggum intriguing. It's like, I just want to see where they go with it. How far will you push this? Because I don't know that he's that dirty that he'll just go all the way, but he sold his friends. So, I mean, I guess it's possible. I don't see that he wouldn't go that dark, but maybe he would.
Yeah. That it?
Yeah.
That's your final on Talker, the Notorious Talker. I
was actually very surprised how much I enjoyed that show.
365 Days to the Wedding is our next one. Kakon Suru te Honto desu ka. This one is done by Ashi Production. Sources of manga. Genres are romance. The creator, of course, behind this one being Tamaki Wakaki, who did World God Only Knows and 16-Bit Sensation. This one opens up with Takuya, who is working at this, like it's a I always forget the name of what kind of company. It's like a tourist thing, like a booking company for tourists and whatnot. And he's working at that place. He doesn't seem to be very social to people around him, has a lot of difficulty with overthinking things when he's responding. People think that he's just kind of ignoring them or just not communicating properly. He's always had a communication problem. And at some point, he ends up finding out that their company is going to be, they're looking for a candidate, one of the employees, to ship off to another country to open up a new branch. And they said they're going to prioritize people that are single. So this kind of scares Takuya because he has a cat at home that he really, really likes, and he doesn't really want to leave. He even contemplates the idea of quitting his job because he doesn't want to get relocated. He ends up bumping into Rika, a coworker, who's also kind of socially inept in a lot of ways. not very good at communicating, just like him. He ends up bumping into her outside of work and kind of mentions to her that he was planning on quitting his job because he got to take care of his cat. And she goes, okay, well, I'm kind of in a bind too, so why don't we both just get married? Let's just get married, and that way they can't ship us off. We'll just announce to them that we're getting married, we're engaged, and thus, we're a couple, and they won't be candidates. So they end up doing that. He agrees to it. She's like on top of it. Like, she immediately says, I'll plan everything out. Don't worry about it. I'll do all this setup and everything. Just kind of go along with it. And so, yes, they go to the work again, and they tell the manager, hey, we're married. She's like, holy crap, that's great. She's super excited for the two of them because she felt the two of them have their own problems. They quickly set up a surprise celebration with the entire office and everything, and they just kind of have to go along with it. Very quickly, he gets a phone call from somebody claiming that they know his secret and that tries to manipulate him to do different things in order to not tell his secret to anybody. His dad shows up. He's apparently gotten wind of it, and he wants to, enact their hometown rituals of having a big, massive party and everything like that. And so on and so forth. We eventually started getting to each one of the individual characters and that are in the workplace. You got a guy that's trying to find love. You got this other guy that's having issue with his marriage, his son. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. And eventually kind of building up this idea of the two of them trying to figure out what it means to be in love, and questioning the idea of are they actually in love, and could they possibly just get actually married? All that kind of stuff builds up. So I really did feel like this show, I don't know if this is a full adaptation or not, but the ending, while the last episode felt like it rushed to a conclusion, felt like I don't see a reason why there would be another season. Like it felt conclusive. Like, it felt like it wrapped things up, unless it starts getting to some other stuff afterwards, which they can always do. But my thoughts. Early on, I was actually digging this show a lot more than I thought I would. Obviously, I think both of the characters are pretty solid. My earlier draw to the show was that I liked this idea of two individuals that are socially awkward. I don't want to say introverts, but they're kind of in that same mindset where they're just not used to being around people. Not used to being opening themselves up to other people. And I felt like it would be a good exploration of that from two different perspectives. Rika, the female Honjoji, she is like, her whole thing with her backstory is that her mother was always traveling for her job, and she was always kind of left behind. Her mom would get her like these maps and whatnot, so she really loved maps because she'd always look at the maps and figure out where mom was going to, and then daydream about the fact of her getting to go with her on those trips and seeing the sights that her mother sees. And that kind of made her, again, very socially awkward. With him, he has his own issues about, communicating to other people and being kind of closed up as well. And I felt like watching the show, I'm like, this would be cool to see how they slowly get out of their own shells through their own interaction with each other, learning what love is, but at the same time learning how to bond with other people. And then it shifts. It shifts to getting into all the office workers. And that's where it felt off to me, because they would have these episodes that would just jump into one of the characters, and now suddenly I'm supposed to care about them, even though they haven't been really that much present before. And now they're getting some really deep dive into them, and I just don't really care. Hiromi, I was okay with. That was like an idea of him trying to find love, and he ends up finding somebody that's like into the idols like he is, and it gets in this cute little thing between the two of them until eventually it has kind of a stomach punch moment at the very end of it where he suddenly has a realization of the person that he's trying to get married with has her own difficulties, and could he accept those difficulties or not, which I thought was pretty decent. So it felt jarring how it was trying to veer off to all these other characters before it comes back to them, but at the same time, it didn't really get into the real character development that I was expecting from the main two characters. Eventually, it does kind of come back to them towards the later part. Like I said before, it felt like it was the ending of it was rushed. The build up to it was fine. It wasn't clever with how they kind of build up their relationship towards the later part. It feels like it just kind of, it's the best way to put it, I guess dithers a bunch. It dithers a bunch and has them kind of just sitting there struggling until it just clicks. And I felt like it wasn't that interesting. Like the whole later quarter of the series was just kind of boring for me for the most part. Again, it has a solid ending to it, but I feel like overall the main story, which is their relationship, just didn't feel that good. Like it didn't feel, it was fine. It wasn't like it did anything wrong. It just didn't feel interesting. None of it felt interesting. And I don't know if that's just because of how it was portrayed didn't really click with me, or if it just overall just, it just kind of felt boring for the most part. So in the end, like overall the show, it's fine. It has a lot of very boring moments in it, but it's fine. So that's my ending thoughts on 365. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. What next? What next, Chris?
And the one I really don't want to talk about, but I need to.
Do-over Damsel. The do-over.
One that I saved Andrew from.
The one I saved. The do-over Damsel conquers the Dragon Emperor, or Yari Naoshi, Reijo wa Rute, Heita wo Kushu. This one was streaming on Crunchyroll for 12 episodes, done by JC Staff. Source of the light novel. Genres are fantasy and romance. Creator of this did Taming the Final Boss, which is Sarasa Nagase. This one opens up with Jill Seville, and it opens up with her being executed for crimes that she did not commit. Because we find out later on that, yes, she, in the past, was married off to this prince. After a while, she comes to find out that the prince is in love with his sister, and she discovered this, and then she ends up getting killed later on for things that she didn't do. And so she ends up finding herself back in time, after she dies, back in time, back to the point where just before the prince first met her and claimed that he fell in love with her and wanted to marry her. And now she wants to do everything she can in order to avoid meeting him. She ends up bumping into him at the ball, and as she's trying to run from him, she ends up grabbing the nearest person and saying, I'm actually in love with them. And it ends up being this prince, soon to become emperor of this other kingdom that was just visiting for the ball. And he's just like ecstatic that she just confessed her love to him. Because he's like never been in love or something like that before. Nobody's ever loved him. And so he whisks her way off to his kingdom, where things start to unfold the way that it unfolded in her previous life, but now that she's in different locations, she's got to figure out things as she goes along. So,
how far did you get?
Just to the point where she's at the dock, and then they had like this plot that was being done by the girl that is in love with the Emperor Hades, that he ends up ignoring. And in her previous life, she'd apparently been involved like this massive murder and before killing herself, and then come to find out now that Jill's there, oh, it was all the plot of her father, and she was a sacrifice to that. So they end up uncovering that plot, and then Hades shows up and ends it all. Hades Rev.
That was probably about as far as it got that was decent for the show. This show has a production issue,
but it's JC
huge.
Staff.
Yeah, the This one had a massive production issue.
So it's not their CGI group that does like the Duke of Death and stuff like that. It's not their A team. It's their like D team.
I don't know what it is.
They have like 3 or 4 different teams.
But at any rate, there was. There was something about it that I kind of wanted to find out what that we're gonna do with, and so I kind of kept going with it. There's this dragon, the dragon emperor, the dragon consort, the goddess with on the other side, which they were trying to kind of bring to the forefront. And that was probably about the most interesting thing that they had going for it. So I was trying to kind of hold on to see where that was going. While they did bring that to the forefront to an extent, I don't think it landed as well as it I was hoping for, I guess. And when we did finally get towards the end, they did have kind of an interesting little twist towards the end that kind of worked out, but it wasn't the payoff that really...
Jill falls in love with the princess. They kill Gerald and then steal away his sister.
She became a little bit more prominent. Don't
tell me.
Yes.
Oh, I knew it.
But it's not for the reason you think. It's because she is the goddess.
Oh, spoilers.
Yeah. So she has some kind of a weird thing where she has to steal whatever. And that's why when she went after Hades, she went after him too.
She's jealous.
But she has more of a thing with the Hades. So it's this weird thing. I like I said, I wanted to kind of be more interested in that background story, but it wasn't hitting the way it should. And that's probably more because there's deeper lore involved in a lot of that stuff that probably didn't get brought to the forefront with the adaptation. There was kind of a couple of interesting little twists towards the end, but they still, like I said, they weren't enough to kind of just drag this out of its muck and mire that it was, especially with the production issues that it was having massively towards the end. I showed Andrew a clip of it, and it was like, this is a mess. I watched that scene maybe 3 to 4 times to kind of gather what was going on there. The directing just fell off the cliff, and then you have just kind of just bad framing in general. But all in all, it was fine. It stayed in the mud and it never came out.
I'm surprised that you did that entire review without actually getting into one of the things that we were talking about was like its weakest point in the first impressions.
What, Hades?
Hades being annoying as hell. It is constantly over the side making
I still think he should have been a female so that it could be a Yuri. It would have been 100 times better.
He's just constantly off the side making danishes and cakes and just being a girl while she's over there being a badass or something like that. Like, I liked her character. I thought she was just awesome. I mean, it gets in that whole idea because I don't know if it was didn't really get into it in detail, but like it almost feels like just because she's been technically going back in time, she still has like all of her abilities from before, so she's like massively OP and like just wrecking like an entire ship of enemies or something like that. That was always cool, but yeah, shrug. It was fine. Like what I did watch, it was fine. Nothing great though. I just didn't like Hades. Hades. There you go. Do over Damsel conquers the dragon emperor. Does he at least become more prominent later on, besides just in the kitchen?
A little bit.
All right. Negative, positive, Angler are streaming on Crunchyroll, done by Studio Nut. Sources original, genres are drama. The writing being done by Tomohiro Suzuki, who did some script work and whatnot for Aka 13, One Punch Man, and Tiger and Bunny. This one opens up with Tsunehiro Sasaki. As it opens up, he's not doing well enough that he's, throwing a rope around his neck and failing miserably at trying to stop life. Kind of find out he is in a massive amount of debt. When he was younger, he felt like he was destined to be in the upper echelons of society, you know, get a really good job and everything. But then he like put a bunch of his money into markets, and those markets crashed, and then he lost all of his money.
I thought you said he was going into crypto.
I think it was implied that he was in crypto, yes. Then he just starts taking out a bunch of money and failing with that money too, until he gets, you know, a bunch of debt collectors, sharks coming after him to get their money back. But anyways, he ends up realizing that, oh yeah, that's right, I had an appointment at the hospital. He goes to the hospital, they do a scan on him, they find out that he's got a brain tumor or something. He's only got like 2 years left to live, and he's like, oh crap, that's just another thing to add to my list of don't care anymore about life. But then he decides at the point, okay, I got 2 years left to live, might as well just live it up. Just who cares that I'm in debt or anything, because I'm not gonna live for another 2 more years. Might as well just live it up. He ends up getting chased by the debt collectors again, slips and falls off a bridge, ends up getting fished up by a group of fishermen who, you know, fish him on the boat, went to this little kind of breakwater point. And there they decide to, okay, you're stuck here until the boat comes back and takes us back to land, so why don't you just enjoy, which I don't know why you would fish somebody up and then take them out to a breakwater and wait till they regain consciousness. I'm not sure why you wouldn't immediately take them to the... I never thought about that. Anyway, it's not... Stop thinking about it. After he regains consciousness, he's stuck there, so they decide, okay, well, you want to try out fishing? And he's like, no, I don't really want to. And eventually he does try it out, and they're like, isn't that great? And he's like, not really, whatever. Next day he goes home. They take him back to the land. He goes home, find out his apartment's been demolished. Oh, that's right. He got like a whole bunch of notices saying that, you know, get out of there because we're going to tear down the apartment and rebuild it. He ends up staying with those fishermen. They have like this, you know, guy that initially fished him out, you know, takes care of him. And over time, he gets to know the rest of them. He starts working at the market that they all work at. They love him working there because they all want to go out fishing. And so whenever there's like a good tide, they can rely on him to stay behind to watch the shop while they go fishing. But yeah, he gets dragged into fishing with them over and over again, and eventually meets each one of the members of their little fishing group, why each one of them enjoy fishing, trying to find his own joy in actually fishing, or at least trying something new. Then yeah, later on getting more into the struggles that he's facing with his life and how that kind of ties in with some of them. So my thoughts on NP Angler. I think in the end, this is probably one of those, well, it's not like an incredible show, is still a show that I really, really enjoy in the end. Like it's got a vibe to it. And I think that's really done well in the fact that it's got a really good cast of characters that all have sort of they're not like, they don't like provide like a fix for him or anything like that. They're not pulling him out of some kind of darkness that he's, you know, found himself into. They're just kind of there, and they're just enjoying life, and he's sort of getting sucked into their situations that kind of slowly opens his door to being more open and, you know, coming to grips with what he's actually dealing with. I think it did that well. A lot of it's facilitated by Hana, who is like their youngest of the group. She's like she's Edis. I joke with a lot of people, and like every time I went back to get caught up on it, because I get like 3 episodes kind of built up, and then I go and I watch it, and every single time I went to go get caught up, I would always like message people like, every time Hana jumps up on the screen, she literally is Edis. And it was not the same Seiyu. I so badly wanted to be the same Seiyu, but it's like she's just got that personality that Edis has. Like, you're gonna enjoy this, but you don't enjoy this, you're gonna enjoy this. Like Edis with her like swordsmanship is like Hana with fishing. It's like, I'm gonna show you because this is great. I'm gonna do this thing because I'm gonna do it. Always trying to one up Tsunehiro. Like they'll go out fishing together, and she'll just like. Well, there was a situation where she couldn't figure out the change for this one guy because he ended up adding like some extra coins to the transaction, and she couldn't calculate the difference there in order to do full bills, whatever. And so he figures it out for her, and then he makes some comment later on that she's a really good fish. She's really good at fishing, but she doesn't know math very well. And so she ends up like tricking him to going out fishing with her so that she catches a fish and he doesn't, just to prove her that she, just to prove that he's not good at something compared to her. It was dorky. But yeah, she's got that personality where she wants him to enjoy it as much as she does, and she's willing to kind of push him out there in order to do that. But yeah, they had a good cast of character. Like I really enjoyed each one of them. I thought Takaki, who was the guy that kind of brings him to stay with him at his apartment, tries to help him kind of get over his debt, just felt like a big bro guy. Like he's just there trying to support Tsunehiro, not be too much in there, just support him and guide him, but not really push him in a direction. Even though later on it does kind of get more pushy, and that's the whole part of a drama beat towards the later part. The music of the show, fantastic. It has got like a very acoustic type of soundtrack that just, it works. It just has a vibe to it that goes along with the visuals and everything else. Just a solid overall show, enjoyable cast, and just a very, of course, when a show like this that opens up with a guy that has he's in a terminal state, like he's going to die eventually. I had a lot of early predictions on the show. I was happy that it didn't rely on everything that I was kind of assuming the direction would go. Like, oh, it's going to do a fake out. It's going to do everybody else is dying. It's going to be all about like dying people coming together. Somebody else will die in his place. Oh yeah, we got the scans mixed up. Something stupid like that. I was expecting something stupid. And it didn't really do anything that I was expecting. And how it ended was very satisfying. This is one of those ones where I was expecting to kind of have I'll enjoy the show and then it'll have some kind of butt pull at the very end, or a rug pull, or a twist, quote unquote twist. You think it's a twist, but it's not really that twisty. It's not as much of an impressive twist as the writer thinks it is. But it was a satisfying ending. I did enjoy the ending. It has some really great moments in it. So in the end, a really, really solid series that impressed me and just overall was very enjoyable. So it's a rare good original. I will admit, I'm not a fan of fishing. It does spend a decent amount of time explaining fishing stuff, but it never overstays its welcome. And that's the key thing there. As much as I'm not a fan of fishing, for it to avoid getting me bored, being too tutorial about it is a good thing. So if you're not a fan of fishing, it probably won't it may not bug you. And if you're a fan of fishing, I think it has plenty in there that you might enjoy. Or if you're a fan of fishing, you might critique the hell out of it because no, it's not how that works. I'm sure that somebody that's a massive fishing fan may possibly find errors in it. I don't know. It's good though. I enjoy it. There you go. Let's see. As a reincarnated aristocrat, I'll use my appraisal skill. Second season. Which has got a fourth season, I think. Yeah, I think they already announced a fourth season. They're going to keep going with this show. I was surprised. I was surprised that it got a second season. For it to get a third season now? Apparently it's doing well, I guess. As a reincarnated aristocrat, I'll use my appraisal skill to rise in the world, season 2, or Tensei Kizoku Kantai skill de Nare Agaru, second season. I did not write down the episodes. I think it was 12 episodes again, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Are you sure? Yeah, 12 episodes. This one was done by Studio Mother. Mother is caps, so you have to say Studio Mother. Something like that. Based on a light novel, action fantasy is the genres. This one opens up with a guy who is isekai'd into another world. Really quickly tries to figure out what his super OP abilities are, but then comes to find out the only thing that he has is the ability to appraise people. So you can see like all their stats above their head when he uses his eyeball. And he quickly finds out that his father, who like runs this land, informs him that, yeah, there's like conflict coming to their nation, and kind of get himself prepared for that. Actually, notifies ours to, well, you're really good at kind of picking out people. You should surround yourself with people that you trust and that will support you because stuff's coming. And so he quickly goes out and tries to find a bunch of people. He quickly meets Ritz, who is of this certain bloodline that are people from, other countries that are looked down upon. And so he quickly brings him in, finds this mage girl, some kid who's like the son of a lumberjack or something like that, who's really, really smart. this informant chick, and then like this girl that eventually is going to get married to. She's like super good at kind of reading people and doing negotiations. Mariel, who is like this tactician and whatnot. So starts to surround himself with people. Did I mention the mage? Roxy, you want to be with big...
Yeah, the only one that I can think of
big
off the top of my
Roxy.
head that you missed was the assassin.
It was the informant, or I forget exactly what I said, but yes, I thought I did. But anyways, yeah, just starts surrounding himself with people. Yeah, he eventually gets a Lancer dude too. He gets a Lancer dude. That's technically right. It gets a pupil. Well, that's technically what it is. Like he gets these people, and they get their own pupils. So I think it's sort of trying to branch out in some way. But either way, yeah, that's he builds people around him. Eventually, in the second season, we start to kind of get involved with the war itself as Ars is getting up there, and they end up having to negotiate with his other people to make sure they don't join in with the people that are coming to invade them. They start to battle it out, and eventually, I guess I don't want to spoil things, so and he gets engaged.
Yeah,
got a main character that actually gets engaged. Shocking. So what's your final thoughts on season 2?
I love this show. I really
I haven't heard that in a long time. No enthusiasm there, but
I really love the way that this show kind of the first section we were pretty much just getting through the this is his hometown and going through his learning or his growing up pains to get to this point where he kind of just grows up, and now the entire thing is now on his shoulders. Now we're going into this next part where he effectively is showing him is stumbling his way, but eventually getting himself to a point where he is respected amongst all these nobles. And I really like that it's not a story of just him kind of jumping into the throne. He's actually going through all these mess ups. While he has a lot of people that are around him that are supporting him, he's still building himself a good, solid team. And I think that it's really well done. He's not, like I said, he's not already there. He's not at the finishing line. Well, now we just have to go through the process. He's literally going through different difficulties and dealing with those difficulties as he goes. He's seeing both sides of a situation. He's, one of these situations, it was a person who was in a very, very uncomfortable situation that made him not quite wanting to do what he had to do, but he was effectively an enemy. And Ars went through the process of fixing that situation so that the person wouldn't actually go against him. And I like that they went through that process. We eventually seen an enemy who was effectively just a rival, and while he didn't technically do anything wrong, he was trying to support his boss or his king. And
I think at some point it turns into like literally everybody just assumes that anybody that Ars beats can just turncoat. Like with that whole situation, like, will you join us? Like, are we just okay with that? Or all right. Well, Ars beat him, so obviously they're gonna want to join, right? Well, let's give them the option of joining. Whatever. Anyways, moving on.
But yeah, I like a lot of the storytelling in this one. I like the basically going from the ground up, and he's not overpowered. He's just surrounding himself with characters that are
Overpowered.
Yeah, overpowered, but they have growth as well, and it's not something that's just handed to him on a silver platter. It's literally going through the process of each thing as it goes, and he's just picking the right people at the right time.
That was kind of the reason why I enjoyed, or initially was kind of into the idea of this show in the first season, was the idea that unlike everything else, and unlike a lot of the Appraiser shows, he's not overpowered. Like it's not one of those shows where I was reincarnated as Aristocrat and I use my appraisal skill and then I come to find out that my appraisal skill one shots people in the eyeball and they die. Like it legit, he is not strong, and all he can do is look at people and know if they have potential or not. And so he uses that to his advantage to surround himself with people. And it goes further than that in the idea that he technically he has to use his own kindness and actions to win them over. Like it's not as simple as like he goes up and says, "You're really powerful, join me," and they're like, "All right, I'll join you because you know that I'm really powerful." It was weird because in this season I almost was kind of caught off guard because he seems to imply that he's told them that he can see their stats, which I don't think they ever mentioned the first season unless I missed it.
His dad knew at some point. And I want to say Karan, he told him, because at some point Karan kind of corners him into a situation where he was like, I know that these people are really powerful, but how are you gathering it? Because what do you think of my people?
Yeah, I remember something like that, but I never recall them actually saying that. I know he kind of freaks out every now and then when they go like who are you? Like why are you, there's something off about you, and he always kind of dances around it and they kind of go, yeah, okay, yeah, you're just really cool.
If I remember right, the only two Reitz might know.
That I think was who he was talking to in this season. I think he implied to Reitz that he could see it. But yeah,
the outside of that, the only two that I know of was his dad and Karan.
See, with his dad, I don't recall that. I know that he implied that he's able to he sees it in people. Not that I see numbers, I have a power or something like that. It's just that he has a capability of doing that. Obviously, his dad figured that out because he walked up to his dad with somebody who is from a race that is persecuted. And said, "Dad, I want him to join me." And then he goes, "Let me test you." And then come to find out the guy's strong. Okay, my son's obviously figuring something out. Something's going on here. But anyways, I like that aspect of the show, is that he's able to kind of find the potential in people and bring them together. And again, a lot of his ability to win them over comes from his own nature. That was kind of the cheesy aspect in the first season, was like, especially with Charlotte. Like when he brings Charlotte in, she's like, why would I join you? What is your she was living in poverty, and he's like, well, you're a nobleman. What are you going to do to fix things? And she's like, what is your goal or something like that? And he's like, to make a world where kids are happy. Okay, kid, sure, I'll join you because you're gonna. And it was like this whole brief moment where he thinks back to when he was on like a train or something like that in his previous life, and there was a kid in some mom's arm, and he's like, I want to make kids smile like that kid. Okay, that's an interesting driving force. I want to make kids happy because happiness makes everybody happy. Power of happy kids. It was a little cheesy, but it goes to sort of his childish nature. Even though he was an adult in his previous life, he kind of acts like a kid in this new life, like almost like he never growed up. But it's not really prominent enough that it kind of bugs me. He's a cool dude. Like Arson overall is just generally a solid dude, so you kind of want to root for him and see him kind of succeed because he's undoing horrible things that are happening in the world that he's in. My whole thing is that, like with the first season, towards the later part, I got tired of that formula of go out, find somebody. I want to make children happy. Join me so that we can make everybody happy. And they go, yes, sir, let's join you. And he just gets himself surrounded by people. Going into the season, I was almost not going to watch season 2. Like, cause I was fine with season 1, but I'm like, I just don't feel like watching this anymore. I just had a random itch and I decided to fire it up. And I was happy that I did because I thought the season 2, at least the beginning segments, was really solid. I will admit that towards the later part of season 2, I started to have a fatigue about the battles they were doing. I started getting fatigued with it. Thankfully, they keep things interesting because there's still developments happening with the characters as they have all these fights. There's constant different scrimmages happening. He's, again, like you were mentioning, the idea of working with a turncoat and trying to undo that. That stuff kind of still keeps it spicy and still keeps the character developments happening. Getting into Maril and her how she's kind of tied in with this other kingdom, because they mentioned that in the first season that she was technically on the other side of the battlefield, and that's why the king didn't trust her to join ours, is because she used to be on the other side. She was actually a prisoner. So there's still like developments happening with the characters as they go along, and they're still introducing new characters into the mix. But I did feel it to be, while a better season overall, because it's less of this constantly recruiting and more of developing him as a character and developing characters around him. But I can admit that a lot of fights started kind of getting... There's a lot of fights and they're not very interesting. Like, especially the last fight they have, it was like, oh, Russell like speaks up and he stops him because, hey, we should just throw fireballs instead. That's your genius. like they're going with what Morel says, and they're like, oh, but Russell, he sees something. What is it? Oh, that just shoot fireballs instead. Okay, that's his big genius plan, and it overthrew the battlefield because genius kid strategy is the pupil is overtaking the master kind of thing. It just, a lot of the strategies and fights themselves just kind of weren't very interesting. I don't think this writer's strong suit is strategy, is my problem. And there's a lot
of strategy.
Not that they're taking the time to kind of sit there and go, okay, that's when because a lot of shows will do that. Like, they'll have like the battlefield, and you'll see like the markers going across the map, and they're going, we're going to take this flank over here, and we got to make sure that we have our militiamen over here, and we'll have our archers over here, and they'll bombard them here, and then cut to find out that they used their men to go over this direction instead. So they had to make sure they have their, oh, that's right, we have our bandits over here that we hired, our mercenaries over here. That no, it's very simple stuff. But the problem there is that there's so much of it, and it's so simple, it feels like, okay, just fight over and get back to the characters doing something interesting. So that's kind of the only.
Well, hopefully that won't be a continuing thing, since how that was mostly just Muriel and her brother.
I'm very curious what it's going to do next, because we've kind of established something where it's going to start kind of chilling out a little bit, and I'm really kind of curious what they're planning on doing. Well, I mean, I know what they're doing next, because literally at the very end he says, Ars, please take care of this, and it's like, okay, I'm going to take care of it. And so now we can start seeing pretty much something that he had promised several people from the very beginning that he was going to do. How he's going to go about doing that is going to be the question mark, because the shoes that he's feeling right now, you assume he wasn't purposely harming people. So can he pull off what this guy wasn't able to pull off for presumably his entire life that he was taking that role on? So I enjoyed this season overall. I think it had a lot of really good moments in it. Again, I think the battles are meh, and there's a lot of it. But again, they still had a lot of character moments throughout it that were still solid. I hated the negotiation thing. That was about the stupidest thing I've ever watched with Licia. Like, I like what Licia does, but it's still like, that was so stupid, where they had that was the son. Mm-hmm. He just starts barking out some stupid crap, and it was all part of Keikaku. Anyways, stop. And it was funny because it was one of those moments where it's like, we did it purposely because we wanted to do this part, and I'm like, God damn, what an assumption. But okay, whatever. Whatever. We're just okay. Again, Keikaku. Overall, it's solid. Like, I'm getting sidetracked here, and I think the biggest thing right now is that I'm pretty damn excited about season 3. I think season 3 could
really want to see her
good.
shine. I really want to see her shine, and I know that she
got to shine this season. What does it have anything to do with Licia?
Because
I'm just saying overall, I'm excited.
Dude absolutely soiled all that and ruined it. She didn't get to show out
because he left her behind.
No, because dude, the son was being an idiot and.
Oh, you just mean that that scene overall? Okay. I thought you meant the season overall, because she got kind of left behind. He left her back at the house.
Yeah.
Carl, get in the house. I'm going out to battle. Carl, get in the house. But we're getting married. Stay in the house. I'm going to war. That ending was pretty cute. Be the proper the proper girl that you're supposed to be.
Be a proper girl.
Be a proper girl. I'm like, yeah,
wife.
whatever. Yeah, whatever. No, what was sad about that whole scene was like literally I got a little emotional because, which was kind of surprising. He like comes in there, everybody's celebrating, you know, he's here, he's back in town, and then literally he immediately turns to one of the people and sees that they have, you know, their son. Mm-hmm. And he immediately is like, I'm sorry. And they're like, thank you so much for sending the letter. And thank you so much. And we're glad and everything. And don't apologize. And he's getting all emotional. And then suddenly out of nowhere, she's just like, ours. And I'm like, girl, they're over here mourning. Can you not read the room?
Well, that's why she was trying to hold it. She was trying to hold it because she knew she needed to.
No, she yelled out and interrupted it. We didn't see her before then. It was the moment she pops up on scene is she's interrupting this moment. And I'm like, can you not see he's literally talking to mourning family members right now? Do you have to scream at him to pay attention to you? I was like, okay, I don't have like anything on this side of the board where she's got like the negatives. You finally got one check. Over here, you've been good, girl.
She's perfect.
You're doing good,
Stop
girl.
It. Take it off of that. Take that pin off there.
Your first
She's
mark.
Perfect.
Interrupting mourning family members and him trying to apologize and them having a moment.
Disavow. You're disavowed. Take that pin off of there or you're disavowed.
It was a me moment. Me. Look at me. I'm the important one right now. No, it was... I'm sorry. Like I'm getting into like nitpick mode. That whole segment at the end there, besides again her like the whole again be proper lady, and then she breaks. We immediately transition into that scene next. Like they just got home, and we're gonna immediately change his clothes and send him into the garden. Can we not take a moment here? Again, these people are mourning the death of their child. And we're immediately going over here to the garden. What the hell is going on here? It was dark. Yeah, I'm sorry. I still like the fact that they technically implied that Charlotte can be a concubine. I was like, all right. Was that this season or was that last season? Because I felt kind of bad that she gets like the big chested Roxy gets left behind, and I think they kind of implied the idea that she can be a part of it still. I was like, cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, they're all gonna be a part of it. Ritz is gonna be a part of it. Ritz is super thirsty for him. Ritz, I'm sorry. Rijerd is super. We have a big chested Roxy. We have Rijerd. What would be Licia? What would be Licia? I don't think she really fits from Mashiko. I mean, we technically did have Licia's father.
She's kind of a Sylphie.
He looks like he looks like her father looks like my gosh, Sharon Pax. He looks like Pax. The moment I seen him, I was like, and his personality. They were giving off the vibes that was his personality too. Like he's like this nasty dude, and I'm like, yeah, right. Sure enough, he ends up being a total papa. I thought he was cool. Yeah, like I really like his character in the end. That was again season 1 stuff. So, anyways, that's enough of that. That's an aristocrat. I'll use my appraisal skill. Second season. Let's move on to something I don't really want to talk about. Mecha Ude. You had your show that you didn't really want to talk about. Now my show that I want to talk about. Mecha Ude, or Mechanical Arms Mecha Ude, streamed on Crunchyroll for 12 episodes, done by Triff Studio. It's an original action sci-fi show. This one opens up with Hikaru, and at some point he hears this voice calling out to him to help him. He eventually goes to see where the voice is coming from. He ends up stumbling upon this little robot arm that immediately attaches to him, and once attached to him, cannot be separated from him, otherwise it dies. And so he's kind of stuck with it. And he starts getting chased by people. People are starting to chase him around. He comes kind of find out everybody's after this because it is part of a group that can eventually lead them to like this great power that'll grant them any wish or something like that. In this world, essentially these robotic limbs showed up, or these cubes showed up, and they can attach to people, and it feeds off of their power, and they feel each other, and they're called arms or Mecha Ude. And so different groups want to possess all the arms, and again, technically Arma itself, because it'll lead them to this. I guess it's the arm. I don't know. It was something they want to get to. But anyways, he gets drafted in the group. They don't want to use him, but they want to protect Arma itself, which is attached to him, while they try to seek out this source thing and stop this other organization. And so he goes to school still for some reason, while one of their members, Aki, is protecting him. So every now and then somebody will show up to try to steal Arma away from him, and they'll fight them. Eventually leads into a bigger plot line. So my thoughts on Mecha Ude. I think overall the style of the show is solid. I think I really like it. It looks very Trigger in style. Like, I was actually kind of surprised. I mean, granted, it's not anywhere near the, animation quality as Trigger. I was kind of expecting it would be Trigger Studio. So I'm not sure if Triff Studio maybe possibly has some people from them. But I like the style of it. I like the character designs. All that kind of stuff. A lot of the action scenes are pretty solid, while some of it feels like it's a little bit too all over the place, where you can't really tell, like, you can't tell the choreography. Like, it just feels like it's just characters flipping around all the time. But overall, I think the action scenes are really, really solid. Music's fantastic. Got some Swana Hiroyuki in there. But I think that's pretty much as far as I go. My biggest issue with the show overall is, while I do like some individual characters, Aki's character's solid. There was a few other characters like June that I thought was really solid. The biggest problem the show has is Hikaru and the overall plot line. It just, the major plot, like, and how everything itself plays out feels very generic. The plot line's generic. The big twist at the end is very generic. The backstory they get into is very generic. It all leads into like an overall story that is very generic and very overplayed. And I think that's where I think I found most of my issues, is that with the overall plot line not being satisfying in the end and very generic, and how every episode felt very kind of repetitive, with the whole thing of random person shows up to want to kill Hikaru and take away Arma. They beat individual, and then at the end of the episode, they're cool. Everybody's cool with them. Like, especially June. Like, why are we so okay with this? And again, why do we keep going to school? like there's so much of this, like, it feels like these people have zero sense of danger, and they're just kind of going along with things and being buddy-buddy. And so every time a character shows up where they're not necessarily killing anybody, I'm like, they're gonna be a friend in the end of it. Like, everybody that's a bad guy will end up being a friend in the end of it, because it doesn't feel like anybody does anything that's over the line that will make them irredeemable. It feels very juvenile with how kind of safe it is with a lot of the characters, and that's kind of what kind of dragged it up quite a bit for me. Again, visually it's solid. Again, there's quite a few really solid characters, but the overall play out of the series and the grander storyline's very generic. So in the end, I don't really recommend it unless you're looking for a show that just mostly turn off your brain, just watch people punch each other. So that's Mecha Ude. The stories of girls who couldn't be magicians. I wanted this to be good. I hate that I wanted this to be good. Mahotsukai ni naren nakata onna noko no hanashi. This one's streaming on Crunchyroll for 12 episodes, done by JC Staff. That's why your other show wasn't good. Your Do-Over Damsel.
Oh, they put it all on this one?
They put it all in this one.
Gotcha.
At least more. It got some in here. I wouldn't say it's like incredible in animation, but it's...
Oh, well, you just kind of implied that it was that...
I mean, based on what I watched of Do-Over Damsel, yeah, this one was a lot better animated. So there you go. Novel is the source. Fantasy. Director worked on Seven Spellblades and We Cross. This one follows Kurumi, and she's in a world where people use magic, and she dreamed her entire childhood becoming a magician. And so she decides to study really hard to join the Retoran Academy of Magic, where she wanted to become a Megami student. She ends up not passing the test and becoming a Megami student. Instead, she gets into the standard program. Why it's important to get into the Megami students class is because those are the ones that get designated a notebook that allows them to use magic, and they learn how to use magic because they actually have to like take out this like little like calculator pad thing and type in like the spell, and then the spell circle comes out and casts a spell. So if you don't have that notepad, you're not designated to become a magician, you can't use magic. Instead, she gets into the standard class, which, yes, is still good because the standard class is like, it's like a really high-end college kind of thing. So you're going to get like whatever job you want to get by just going to the standard class. She just won't become a magician, which sucks for Kurumi because that's what she's been dreaming her whole life, and she can't become a magician. Which same thing for this other girl in her class, Yuzu. She's kind of in the same situation where she wanted everything to become a magician. Even had this one guy who's like, his brother gets to become a Megami student, and he doesn't, which kind of sucks. So there's kind of a few people that go in the standard class that really, really wanted to, and some of them kind of give up on the dream of becoming magicians the moment they get in standard class. A lot of people in the standard class just want to be there in order to, again, get the jobs they want because it's such a, renowned school. Anyways, right as they start their classes, they get introduced to the teacher, which is Minami Suzuki, and she comes in and she immediately says, "I'm gonna make you all magicians." And yeah, some of them are like, "I don't want to become a magician. I want to become a cook or whatever. I'm just wanting to come to this school because it's really high in school." So they kind of gets in this whole realm where there's like two different styles of using magic. One is using the notebooks, which is what the Megami class is going to be learning. And then you have others that are using like this forbidden art, which is basically drawing the magic circles instead, which Minami can do, and she's trying to teach them all how to do that. Kind of breaking out of the usual molds of society that all wants to use the notebooks. And that gets into a deeper plot line about the two different styles of magic and these, the inner circles of magicians and what they've decided based on their own voting, what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed. Getting into the deeper plot lines of the school itself and the people pulling the puppet strings in the background, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, all the entire time, Kurumi being kind of struggling with the idea of, can she still become a magician, even though she isn't in the Megami class? Does she want to give up on becoming a magician and just focus on just, having a normal job, whatever? So yeah, that's basically just the show. In the end of the day, I wanted to love this show because based on the PVs and everything, and watching the show itself, it's got a very, very beautiful and unique style to it. Very, very much like a fairy tale book type of style to it. Very soft colors and everything. And the drawing itself is very colorful. The characters are probably its weakest point. I would forgive like the overall story, which I don't think is very deep. It's kind of like, again, the same situation as Mecha Ude. It's just a very kind of generic story about the dreams and desires of people to become successful and become magicians, while at the same time the inner workings of the school is working against them. It feels very Little Witch Academia in a sense, in a lot of that regard. But the biggest problem the show has is its characters. Like, Kurumi is okay. She's kind of whining a lot. She's very whiny. Yuzu is the misunderstood tsundere character that first is very much so nasty, but then really quickly realize that she's not really that bad. And then everybody else, I hate. I hate everybody. I mean, Maki's great. Maki's a super pure, supportive roomie of Kurumi, and she's super nice. But everybody else is obnoxious, especially the guy that has to sing everything he says. And I almost felt like at times where I almost was going to stop watching the show because I couldn't stand that every time the class was all together, everybody has to do their quirk. And their quirks are annoying, especially the singing guy that has to sing everything he says. It's just not a very good cast of characters, and not very many of them are likable or very interesting in any way, shape, or form. Like, they feel like stand-ins most of the time. And that's where I think a lot of its problem really comes from. Even when they introduced the club that Kurumi joins, I freaking hated those two too. Like, there's not very many characters in this show that I like, and that's kind of what made it a slog most of all, kind of getting through it. And again, to have not a not a very interesting story overall, kind of sucks. And again, because I really wanted this to be kind of there was something that was telling me deep inside this might be a hidden gem show, and it just wasn't. Like overall, I just didn't enjoy it. It looked good. I liked the style of it. It just felt very safe children's magical show kind of thing. So not much to talk about. That's the stories of girls who couldn't become magi's. All right, Chris. It's time. You watched it, right? I'm double checking. You watched it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next show is TsumaSho. We're finally talking about TsumaSho. I'm sorry. Crunchyroll calls it TsumaSho because you don't want to cause a controversy. The actual title is If My Wife Became an Elementary School Student. Or Suma Shogakusei ni Naru. This one's streaming on Crunchyroll for 12 episodes, done by Studio Signpost. Sources of manga. Genres are comedy, drama, romance, slice of life. And this one follows Keisuke. We find out in the past he at some point was working as a salesman. At some point he sells this kind of program. I think it's like a payment method system from their company. And doing the presentation, he kind of fumbles a little bit, but then he kind of gets helped out. Ends up starting to work alongside this woman for the company they're selling to go to each one of their location, their stores, to set up this payment system. And while they're, doing that work together, they end up, going out to eat together, and they fall in love. And so they get married. Jump forward, they have a kid, everything's great, hunky-dory. And then suddenly he gets a phone call that his wife is dead. And then he, at that point, 10 years have passed. He's, still living with his daughter, and they have just been pretty much at a standstill. He's still working, and she's kind of not finding a job, but their life 10 years prior till now has just kind of come to a grinding halt. Just a life of sadness, obviously. Not being able to get over the loss of somebody they loved. So then, suddenly, they get a knock at the door. He opens the door to find a elementary school student that claims that she is the reincarnation of his wife. That apparently 10 years ago, she reincarnated as this new girl, Marika. And while she was walking by one day, she suddenly got all of her memories from her previous life just flooded into her. And so she decided to confront them because she realized that they're all in a pity party. Y'all haven't moved on since I'm passing. I mean, that makes me feel good and everything, but y'all need to move on with your life. Get your crap together. Stop eating microwave food. Eat a proper meal. Why aren't you married yet? You're an adult. Have you been, looking for a partner? You're going to get married. Keisuke, you need to go get married too. I don't want you to be alone. You should get married to somebody else and move on from me, yada, 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 yada. But yeah, that's kind of where it opens up as, and we kind of have them hanging out more together. There's obviously the difficulty in the fact that they all want to come back together as a family again. All the massive regrets of everything they weren't able to do together. Like Keisuke made all these promises to his wife, we're going to do this and that once Mai moves out of the house. Never got to do any of that. So they're finally able to do all the things that they regretfully never were able to do before she died, and becoming a family again. And unfortunately running into this situation where at some point they realize that they can't keep this up. Kind of find out that Take, the wife, her new mother, is not a very nice lady. She's very very borderline abusive. You can probably say psychologically abusing her as a child, and not a very happy mother. Had a massive breakup with her, her husband, her mom, her dad. But that whole difficulty that comes there. So it's kind of the setup so far, or is the setup without getting to further stuff and getting into spoilers. So just, again, a family being able to finally being reunited again after 10 years of mourning and suffering of losing a very wonderful mother, and trying to do everything they always wanted to do and come back together as a family. Thoughts?
Let me do that. I love this show. No, I do. I really do love this show. It
probably peaked, so you're gonna feel here anyways.
No, I do truly love the show. It is such a special little gem. I really did love the the focus on basically, I don't want to say moving on, but acceptance, and kind of moving forward, and not getting kind of dwelled into something. And this is reflected all across the different characters that are kind of brought into the show. The mom has issues in her past that she needs to move on from. The dad, he has things that he has to move on from. The daughter, of course, they're kind of more focused on mom in general, but they all need to move forward. And I love how just bringing this one character into it and exploring that, and how do they handle that? Because it's not, while it is a warm and loving show, it does have some kind of darker elements that it is dealing with. Loss, abuse, all those different things that they have to deal with. And I think that they did that very well. Very respectful of all the situations involved. So yeah, huge thumbs up for me. I really loved this show.
Yeah, I think the only thing that would probably, if you want to drag something negative out of me, is I think it's not the greatest looking show. It's not a bad looking show, but I would have loved this got a better quality of adaptation. Just here and there, wonky designs and just not much polish given to the overall production of it. But other than that, everything else about this show, I love. I absolutely love it. It's, again, I for those that have listened to us talk about this show before, you're going to probably feel like this is a beating the dead horse, but I think it needs to be said for those that are new here or whatever, this is one of those cases where don't judge a book by its cover. This is and again, I kind of understand Crunchyroll for not having put the title anything but TsumaSho, just because I think that is sort of a barrier there. I mean, we've seen that with the PV re-released, and everybody was freaking out about the title being If My Wife Became a elementary school student. It's just, and I mean, that's going to be something they're going to run into either way, is the moment you start up this series and you get that first introduction where you have this, again, an adult and his adult daughter, just stuck in this dark, depressed state in a dark room eating, microwave stuff. And then suddenly the doorbell goes off and he opens the door and there's this little kid, elementary school kid, is literally going, "I'm your wife." Whoa, nope. Turning it off. Don't judge it by the cover, because what I said before is what's so great about this, and this is, again, one of those aspects of something that I really love about Japanese storytelling, is having a premise like this that is able to force really interesting ideas to the forefront. If he were to open that door and it's just an adult standing there going, "Oh, hey, I popped into this person's body. I'm of age right now," or cut forward 18 years. And it's just, it's an adult now standing in front of him saying, "Oh, I was reincarnated. Okay, let's just get married again." And boom, moving on. I mean, what's the story? She's back and we can get married again and life goes on. The fact that she's an elementary school student facilitates some really interesting roadblocks they run into. Yes, the initial thing is that, yes, they can't be seen together. They have to be very careful about how they are seen by the public. And Take, the mother that is now in this child's body, Take is very clear about that on a regular basis. Be careful how you say things. Be careful what you say in front of other people. We can't be seen in front of each other. Yes, I want to keep making you meals, and that's, again, it kind of gets in that whole idea where she always made bentos for him before, and now she's able to do that again, and it's sort of something that she does want to do and that she does really appreciate. And he wants him to eat better. She's getting something out of it, which initially it doesn't feel like it. Initially, it's basically her saying, "You guys need to get your crap together and move on." But very quickly you realize that she misses it. And again, that's where it gets into what I loved most about the story. Yes, my heart breaks for Keisuke. I can't imagine, having a married wife like that. You're the one. And at some point, phone call, gone. There's no goodbyes, gone. don't I know a lot about how Mai feels, because losing my father is not a mother, and I think a mother is much different than a father, but there's still that similar aspect there. Is losing a parent hurts. And she never really fully grew up. She lost her mother when she was very young. And so that's sort of something that kind of is facilitating the idea of losing a parental figure that will support you and help you grow and give you advice. But the moment that Mai lost her mother, she lost her father too. And it gets in that whole aspect later on, the idea that Keisuke failed to support his daughter when the mother died. And that's a massive regret there too. But anyways, I like their stories. But the thing that I loved the most was Take's story. Her coming back as this new child, and then out of nowhere, she gets her memories back, and then now suddenly she wants to go back to her family. Of course you're going to want to go back to your family. Could you imagine that one day, out of nowhere, you suddenly have like your memories of your previous life flood into your head, and you realize, oh crap, the family down the street, that's my family, and I now have all these many, many years of memories with them, and I want to get back to them. I don't want to be here. And that's where it gets even deeper in the idea of where I'm currently at is an abusive mother that doesn't even want me to be in the room. Mm-hmm. A lady that is suffocatingly horrible in a lot of ways. And it gets in that whole realm of where I love the moment where it has this kind of realization where I still owe it to the person that I was, which is Marika, to be here, even though I want to go back here where it's warm. This is warm. This is where I'm comfortable, and I want to be here forever, but I can't because, one, society will not allow me to stay here because it's a bunch of stranger adults. Mai and Keisuke are adults, and I'm a little kid. I can't be seen in public with these people. I can't stay here. What if my mom finds out? And she feels like suddenly out of nowhere that I'm hiding something from her, so now she's coming down upon me. Takai's story and her struggles and her conflict is where it really got interesting for me. And the moment they had that birthday party and she was about to say, I can't do this anymore and I can't be with you guys, and she just breaks down, and it gets into Keisuke mentioning the idea that she's always been that way, where she has struggles and she won't say. She kind of carries it herself. It started getting really deep with Takai's story. And ever since then, I loved again, these are things that are only brought up with this really, as most would see, questionable concept for the story. But it's what facilitates all these really interesting questions about what ifs, what if this happened? How would you respond? And it only gets better going forward. Like, it was like, yes, obviously the first episode is hard to get through. It's rough. It's the idea of regrets and trying to undo things and having that chance again and just being overwhelmed with that opportunity. But I think the moment that they reveal what's going on with Take and all the conflicts that she's having, it just broke me. And it's like every episode from that on, every episode break me. Chika's story, which is again Take's new mother, her story was phenomenal. Like everything around Chika is just like, it's super nasty, but it's super good. Again, getting into the regrets, the fears that Take has, what she's going on with her mother, all that stuff is super good. I read the manga along with this, and I'm sort of conflicted. I want to say that the manga is a lot more in depth with a lot of characters, and it's really unfortunate how much of Moriya's story is skipped. The anime doesn't really mess with Moriya all that much, and Moriya is a complicated character. Not complicated, but she got a lot of depth to her character, and unfortunately they skip pretty much all that stuff. There is another side plot that they completely decided to take out, which I don't blame them because it's not really that important. But I think overall this was a really good adaptation, because the problem the manga had is that it's just scattershot. It is so all over the place. Like, it jumps around a lot with the different characters doing different stuff. And I really felt like the anime did a good job of kind of taking all that stuff and focusing it in. It focused it in on this family story with Chika, obviously, because she's very critical to Marika's story. All that stuff was very well condensed and very focused. But I will admit that, like, Moriya stuff does feel like it kind of sucks that they skip a lot of that stuff. And unfortunately, and you should check this out afterwards, I'm not sure if you watched my video on it, Unfortunately, they skipped the 5 years later. I don't know why they did, because the 5 years later is a super get into the manga. So anybody out there, if you watch the show, just Google search read TsumaSho manga, click on the last chapter, and read it, because it's got a really cool 5 years later after story that does kind of add a little bit of extra interesting addition to the end. Anyways, I think it was a really fantastic anime adaptation. I think they did a really good job with it. If you really love the anime, just go read the manga. But if you're, I don't think it's necessary. It's only like 111 chapters. It's not that long, but I will admit that there's a few really good chapters they unfortunately skipped. There is a lot of extra depth that will come from the manga, but I don't think it's. I think they did a good job, and I think.
Well, that was the thing that we were talking about with like a silent voice. There's only so much time that you can get as much as you can, and I commend them. I mean, I haven't read the manga, but I would assume that, just going based on what you're saying, that they were very concise with it, and they got
that's the thing. Like
the major beats.
My main key thing is that as I was reading through with the manga, thinking about how would an anime be if they actually adapted this chapter for chapter, I think so many people would have dropped it. I can guarantee you, if this anime was chapter per panel, the manga, I think most people wouldn't finish it. I think most people would get bored, because it not that the manga is bad or anything, but I just don't think a lot of that really does translate to an anime very well. Like, I think a lot of people would be like, why are we getting into Moria and her friend right now? Like, it will have like an entire like first half in an episode just be Moria and her friend talking at a cafe, and it's like, I don't really care about this conversation. I just don't think it would have. Again, I think the anime did really well in kind of being very, very concise.
Well, that's like we've talked about with head talk.
Head talk.
A main character talking in its head.
Oh, and
like that doesn't translate to a show very well.
That's like I said. I always bring up the idea of that one show, Higahiro. Just that, like, having that long moment where he yells out to this family at this table, and then they're all looking at him like, "Excuse me," and then in his mind he's thinking about something for 5 minutes as they're all staring at him. It's like, it's just a really long moment of silence. Everybody's just staring at him for like 5 minutes straight as he's talking in his head the whole situation. Anyways, I really love it though. Really, really good. Seemed like in our Discord, the ending was very controversial. My feelings on the ending is, it all makes sense. Like, it is not a pretty ending. It is I don't know how vague you want to be with it, but, or how if you think you can be vague enough with it. I feel like the ending it makes sense. It's a choice that I think the characters weren't comfortable with making, but it was a choice that they felt that they had to do. And to the grander story of everything, it's a choice that I think a lot of people would be uncomfortable with making, but I think it's a choice that they, in the end, they should have done. It feels dirty, but I think it's a very kind of, this is kind of what we have to do in order to fix this. We have to do something here, otherwise this could go bad kind of ending.
Yeah, that's pretty much around where I was sitting.
But you weren't upset.
No.
We got some people that were heated. We got some people. I don't know. There was a side of me that I thought that I think a lot of people's frustration, or at least our Discord, it felt like a lot of it was because me and somebody else kind of had the context of the manga and we're kind of mentioning things like Moria not being as fleshed out. I think some people kind of took that as that the anime rushed things, and it was like, the anime didn't rush things. It's the same ending as the manga. Like, there's no rushing here. It's literally the ending. There's nothing. The ending wasn't changed. And I did kind of think that they might have. I could see Moria being a lot more influential, because I mean, they were trying to hint that Moria's being the coworker.
Yeah, the coworker.
Yeah.
I could see that her being a kind of a outsider's perspective and having a lot more influence on characters than if she's more fleshed out, that would kind of hint at a lot of that stuff.
What I was implying with a lot of the conversation with people was that I think one thing that people may feel, and at least this is the impression I was getting, is some people might not be as accepting of the ending unless they feel like they got a sense of how much Take meant to Moria. And again, with a lot of the chapters that they spent together, Take means a lot to Moria. A lot. So it kind of may soften the blow of what happens at the end a lot there. Anyways, in the end, love it. Love it. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of Takeru's like really big in the manga too. He's a good boy. Takeru's a good boy. He's very pushy. Like he just constantly wants Take to be his girlfriend. Like really bad. Constantly calling her girlfriend. Anyways, yeah, it's super good show. Love it, love it, love it. One of my favorites of the season for sure. Let's move up to what else do we have left? We have one more, I think. Yeah, we're just in time. You are Miss Servant. Is it You Are Miss Servant? Is that what it's called? I forgot. I forgot the title of this stupid show.
Anta Servant's on.
No, the stupid thing about this title is I want to call it what the Japanese is. What's this? The Japanese is You Are Maid-sama. Why do they... It's one of those puzzling things where, like, you think, like, companies like... I mean, Crunchyroll literally decided to use the TsumaSho name rather than my wife is an elementary school student. If my wife became an elementary school student. So why would this one, and unless it's already established as like the English title for the source material or something like that, sometimes that happens where it's already established an English title and they have to use that as consistency. But if they bought up the license for Kimi wa Meido-sama, why would they purposely use servant as a name? I mean, that's just like the whole situation with Chain Soldier. Nobody wants to call it the Slave name. Why would they call this one servant? Why doesn't it be Maid-sama? Or at least Miss Maid. And anyways, it's You Are Miss Maid, or Miss Servant, which is Kimi wa Meido-sama. Streaming on Crunchyroll for 12 episodes, done by Felix Film. Sources of manga, comedy, romance, slice of life are the genres. This one follows Hitoyoshi, who is living alone. At some point, he gets a knock on his door, and there's this lady outside, and she's like, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. Can you give me a job here?" Didn't really specify what for, and he like asks her what she's good at, and she's an assassin. She's lived her entire life being an assassin, and she was told by her boss to come here, and she'll be able to get a job here. Eventually, he's like, yeah, he's kind of creeped out and freaked out by the fact that she's an assassin, and like, look, I don't think that I have anything that you can do. Ends up saying goodbye to her as she's kind of leaving. She leaves a bell behind, so he runs over to give her the bell, and then he nearly gets run over by a truck, and she saves his life, and he decides to give her a job. And he tries to teach her how to become a maid, and she's not very good at it. She's good at chopping up vegetables. That's about it. But yeah, it just kind of turns in there from that point onward. It just turns into the whole thing where Hitoyoshi is trying to help her learn to fit in to a job, which would be to be a maid, teaching her how to be a maid, at the same time teaching her what it's like to have a normal life and not be an assassin. And it's pretty much the most of the show. I mean, we get into like how she's like this really well-known assassin and everything, obviously, getting into like her dark history about how she was always a killer and now she's learning how to be a normal person. Eventually introduces Hitoyoshi's sister, who's super into the idea of this chick being an assassin, thinks it's cool. They get a dog. Other assassins come after Yuki because this maid, because she's so well known, and taking her down would be like something that would give them massive creds. And yada yada yada. My final thoughts on the show. Did you watch it? Any of it? No. That's crazy. My overall thoughts on the show is I like Yuki as a character, which is the assassin. Eventually, she asks him to name him, and he goes Yuki. Yuki is super cute. I love her design. I I like some of the interaction with some of the characters. Like I really love the segments with Rico. I think Rico really helps the show kind of be a lot more entertaining, because my biggest problem for most of the show is that Hitoyoshi and Yuki's chemistry is just very, it's very basic. Like I don't really feel much between them. Like the chemistry is not fun. It's not funny. It's not interesting. Most of the comedy between the two of them comes from how awkward she is about doing normal tasks that she's not used to doing. Like the whole bucket scene. Like she's trying to figure out how to mop the floor, and she literally just stumbles it, tries to catch the bucket, slams on her head, and she's a failure. The problem is most of the runtime of the show is really given to, they'll be presented with something, they'll overcome something. At the very end, Yuki has a moment where she realizes how dark her life used to be and how now she has happiness, and she's trying to figure out if she deserves to have that happiness or not. It's very basic and very overly repetitive found family. It is found life kind of stuff. It is, I was once in a dark place, and now I don't know if I can be in this light. And then Hitoyoshi says something like, yeah, you can be in the light. And then she goes, I can. Light glitters, happiness. I can be happy. I can have life. I can be a family member. I can have nice things. I can eat tasty stuff. This thing, it tastes so sugoi. But I run out of the sauce, and I need to get more sauce. My life is horrible, but then I can be happy now, and I give you lap pillow, and then I now have family, and we could be family, doki dokis. It's very repetitive with that. I joked at some point with some people, like, that's really what it feels like, is at the end of every episode, you have to have a moment where she goes, Hitoyoshi, am I allowed to be happy? Yeah, you're allowed to be happy. And then it's cut flashbacks, blood covering up her face, and she's got a knife, and she's cleaning out the knife. I'm allowed to be happy? Yes, you are. And then lights. It's so repetitive. I didn't care for the show. I'm just gonna be honest. I think overall, I really didn't. I had some brief moments where I had fun with like the other assassin chick when she shows up. Any moment where it's not just Hitoyoshi and Yuki, it was okay. But anytime it's just the two of them, it just feels like so repetitive and boring. So, besides her having nightmares about the sauce and how she wasted it, like she internalizes like any strife as the sauce. Her obsession with the sauce is just dorky. They get in a little bit into Hitoyoshi and his relationship with his father, but it felt super anticlimactic. Like it was like, wow, that was a lot of nothing. Like we made a. I mean, it makes sense as the idea of somebody kind of being young and misinterpreting their parents' decisions as something of hatred towards them or difficulties for them, and then realizing that they can kind of break past those barriers. It was fine, but it also felt like it was playing it up really heavily to nothing. Anyways, that's You Are My Servant. It's just very, it's like a 5, very middle, 2.5. You're on the 5 scale. Mm-hmm. Just like right in the middle. Not terrible, but maybe 4. We'll go 4. That was a nice even number. No, it's not. That's even more difficult. I don't know. There you go. That's You Are My Servant. Check that out if that's interesting. So we'll wrap it up there. Like I said before, we have, I think, good enough for one more, which was Loner Life in Another World, Ron 1/2, new remake, 2.5 Dimensional Seduction. Hopefully Chris can catch up on that one. It's got a lot of episodes to watch in 1 week. Everybody, Gambari's at Chris. Yell at your speakers right now and say, Gambari, Chris. Natsume Book of Friends, Season 7, Zenagoku Yoko, Demon Lord, Mao-sama 2099. We have Nagadamir, Magical Girls Inc. We'll probably talk about, and after that we'll probably do some mid-season talk about Orb, which got super brutal here in the last episode. It was super good. ReZero, Starting Life in Another World Season 3, Tying Knot with Aoyami Sisters, and I don't know, we might talk about Danmachi. That's kind of just been delayed. It's not really a mid-core now. It's been delayed till spring. It sucks. And I think also Demon Lord, Dragon Ball Daima, we might talk about too. I think that's going to core at this point too. So, anyways, that's what we have left. I hope you guys will join us for that, and we'll wrap up the 2024 year finally, and go right into we'll probably go right into doing our deliberations for Anime of the Year 2024, which most people have probably heard me talk about to death. But what's cool about the podcast coverage of Anime of the Year is Chris gets to join in too, which that'll be interesting this year for sure, because I mean, we haven't really been combining our list. We did combine our list for the Anime of the Year. But Chris is going to be struggling with a lot of those. Chris is going to be struggling with a lot of those this year. But we'll see. I was going to say, if you can check out the list and we'll start compiling that together, but you're going to be busy watching 2.5 Dimensional Seduction. Yeah. So I can't really rely on you to help me with that. I'll handle it. It's okay, Chris. I'll handle the setup for it. Okay. Anyways, if you guys don't know, definitely check out youtube.com/Otaku Spirit if you're not listening to this on Otaku Spirit on the YouTube channel, because I have been posting a lot of the year-end stuff there. I got my top 10 list there, as well as I'm doing a top worst anime as well. So I'm gonna get nasty. I'm gonna get my nasty list on there, the naughty kids for the year for anime. So definitely check that out. We appreciate you guys' support there, as well as, again, at TalkSpirit.com. It's where all of our links are to ways to support us, ways to get a hold of us, like on Discord. But yes, the ways to support us, like Discord. The ways to support us through Discord. I mean, there is a way you can boost on the Discord to help the community, but that's a separate thing. That goes to Discord. That doesn't go to us. On TalkSpirit.com, there's a way to support us, like through Patreon, tips, links, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we greatly appreciate your guys' support. And until next week, take care.
Os.